the night the world's richest collectors gathered to bid on the legendary Aurelian Diamond Necklace, no one noticed the poor single father standing near the service door with a borrowed black jacket, a cracked briefcase, and a little girl's pink hair tie wrapped around his wrist like a promise. They noticed the billionaires, the cameras, the velvet ropes, the champagne trays, the security guards, and the elegant auction director who believed every problem could be solved with money, lawyers, or silence. But when the necklace's clasp failed under the spotlight, when a famous buyer accused the auction house of fraud, when the live stream froze on a close-up of a gemstone that should not have existed, and when a $200 million auction began collapsing in front of the world, the only person who stayed calm was the man everyone had mistaken for a desperate temp worker. He did not shout, he did not beg, he simply stepped forward, looked at the necklace once, and asked the one question that made every expert in the room go pale. Who changed the mounting after the final condition report? Ethan Cole woke at 4:38 a.m. because the apartment radiator kicked like an old machine losing an argument, and because his daughter Lily had turned sideways in her sleep again, one socked foot hanging off the edge of the small mattress, one arm wrapped around a stuffed white rabbit with a missing button eye. He did not move at first. He lay still on the couch beneath a gray blanket that had become too thin 2 winters ago, and listened to the quiet. The city was not awake yet, not fully, but it was practicing, pipes humming behind old walls, a delivery truck sighing somewhere below, rain tapping the fire escape in small patient fingers. Ethan had learned to measure mornings by sound. Quiet meant Lily was safe, the lock still held, the downstairs neighbor's dog had not started barking, and the landlord had not slid another warning under the door. Quiet meant he had a few minutes to be afraid before he had to become useful. He sat up carefully, folded the blanket into a square because order was the only luxury nobody could charge him for, and reached for the cracked brown briefcase beside the couch. Inside were 3 things that did not belong to the life people thought he lived: a jeweler's loop wrapped in a handkerchief, an old auction paddle from a sale that had ended his career, and a sealed envelope from his late wife, Grace, with his name written in her calm blue ink. He had never opened it. That was not true. He had opened it in his mind 1,000 times. He had imagined her telling him to fight, to forgive, to take the old calls from old clients, to stop hiding behind temporary jobs and discount groceries. But paper made imagination accountable, and Ethan had not been ready for the kind of truth Grace always told without softening the edges. From the bedroom corner, Lily mumbled, "Dad?" Ethan closed the briefcase gently. "Still early, Firefly. Did the heater win?" "Not yet. It's making a strong opening statement." Lily turned over and blinked at him through messy brown hair. She was 8, small for her age, sharp-eyed in the way children became when they knew adults sometimes skipped dinner and called it not hungry. "Can I have toast with the jam that has the seeds?" "That jam has 3 spoonfuls left." "So yes?" Ethan smiled despite the ache behind his eyes. "So yes." He made breakfast quietly in the tiny kitchen. 2 slices of toast, one divided into triangles for Lily because triangles tasted luckier, one left whole for him because adults were supposed to pretend shape did not matter. He spread the seeded jam thinner than she would notice and placed the better piece on her plate. Lily came to the table wearing her blue sweatshirt, her rabbit tucked under one arm, and Grace's old silk scarf tied loosely around her waist like a royal sash. "Today is the jewelry place?" she asked. Ethan poured water into the kettle. "Today is the auction house." "Same thing, fancier words." "Mostly. Are they going to let you fix things?" Ethan paused with the kettle in his hand. Children asked dangerous questions because they had not yet learned which doors adults nailed shut. "They're hiring temporary floor support," he said. "Moving cases, checking labels, helping with storage, whatever they need." Lily frowned. "But you know about diamonds." "A little, Dad. More than a little. Mom said you could hear when rich people lied." Ethan looked toward the window, where dawn had started turning the glass from black to gray. Grace had said too many things in front of a child who remembered everything. "Your mom liked dramatic sentences." Lily picked at her toast. "She said you were the best negotiator in New York before the necklace people made you sad." He turned back slowly. "The necklace people? She didn't say names. She said sometimes people don't steal gold. They steal your name and make you carry the empty part." Ethan felt the room tilt, not violently, just enough to remind him that grief was furniture you could walk around for years and still strike your shin on in the dark. When did she say that? When she was sick and thought I was asleep. Lily ate the corner of her toast. I wasn't. Ethan sat across from her. Firefly, today is just a job. She studied him with Grace's eyes and his stubborn mouth. Jobs become stories when someone lies. He let out a breath that almost became a laugh. Who taught you that? You. When the cable company charged us twice. That was different. You still made them apologize. I negotiated a refund. You made them apologize first. Ethan could not argue because it was true. He had once negotiated mergers, ransom-level art disputes, estate wars over royal jewels, and auction catastrophes. Powerful families paid millions to keep out of the press, but Lily still believed his finest work was making a cable supervisor say sorry for billing a dead woman's account. Maybe she was right. He checked the time. Finish breakfast. Mrs. Donnelly will take you to school. Lily's face fell, just a little. You can't walk me? Not today. Because jewelry people wake up early? Because rich people panic early and call it preparation. Lily smiled at that. He packed her lunch, tied her shoes, brushed her hair badly enough that she took the brush from him and fixed it herself, then knelt by the door. Rules? He asked. No opening the door unless it's Mrs. Donnelly. No telling strangers Dad is at the fancy jewelry place. No trading my lunch dessert unless the trade is better than 2 cookies. And no letting fear sit in the big chair. Ethan touched her nose. Exactly. Your rule? She asked. He hesitated. Come home. She shook her head. Full rule. He sighed. Come home with my name still mine. Lily nodded as if satisfied with the legal strength of the clause. Good. Mrs. Donnelly arrived at 6. 10 inches, a purple coat, and orthopedic shoes, took Lily's hand, and gave Ethan the look she gave him every time she suspected he had eaten less than his daughter. There's soup upstairs tonight if you stop pretending pride has calories, she said. Good morning to you too. I'm serious. I know. Lily hugged him tight at the door. If the diamonds are mean, don't listen. Diamonds are rocks. People make rocks mean. Then she was gone down the hall, and Ethan stood alone in the apartment, with the kind of silence that came after children left. Clean, painful, and full of all the money you did not have. He opened his briefcase again and touched the loop through the handkerchief. 8 years ago, his name had meant something in auction houses. Ethan Cole, the man who could settle any sale before it became a scandal. The man who could bring a furious royal trustee, a terrified insurance underwriter, a billionaire collector, and a grieving heir into the same room and leave with everyone believing they had chosen peace voluntarily. He did not appraise stones in the ordinary way. He read people around stones. A diamond could tell you where pressure had lived. A clasp could tell you who had touched it last. A provenance file could tell you who needed the lie to be old. And a room full of collectors could tell you which person wanted the object and which person wanted control of the story around it. That was why Wexford and Vale had called him once. That was why they had paid him quietly. That was why, after the Marceline Sapphire disaster, they had made sure nobody called him again. At 6:37, Ethan locked the apartment and took the train downtown in his only dark suit. It had been good once, tailored for a life with better lighting. Now the cuffs were tired, the shoulder seam pulled when he reached up, and one button had been replaced by Grace with a darker one that never matched. He kept his left wrist turned inward so the pink hair tie Lily had given him did not show. It was ridiculous and childish, and the only thing on him worth more than money. The auction house rose on Madison Avenue, like a building designed to make ordinary people lower their voices. Wexford and Vale had bronze doors, limestone columns, and windows so clean they reflected the poor more sharply than mirrors. Inside, the lobby smelled of waxed wood, winter flowers, expensive perfume, and fear disguised as professionalism. Staff moved quickly but quietly. Security men stood beside glass cases. Assistants carried tablets. Floral arrangements towered over reception desks like botanical bank accounts. Ethan gave his name to a young woman who looked at his worn shoes before she looked at his face. "Temporary floor support?" she asked. "Yes." She handed him a visitor badge without meeting his eyes. Service elevator, basement level. Ask for Mr. Shaw. He pinned the badge to his jacket and stepped aside as a silver-haired man in a cashmere coat entered with a bodyguard and a woman carrying a velvet case. Behind them came cameras, whispering staff, and the kind of attention that meant an object nearby had become more important than the people carrying it. Ethan turned slightly, just enough to see. The case was long, narrow, midnight blue, stamped with no visible logo. The woman held it incorrectly, not carelessly, too carefully. People who carried jewels for a living allowed their hands to trust the box. People carrying a secret held the box as if the box might accuse them. Ethan looked away before anyone noticed. He was not here to read rooms. He was here to move cases, collect a day's pay, and leave. Service elevator, the receptionist repeated, sharper this time. Of course, in the basement staging level, Wexford and Vale lost its marble face. There were gray floors, rolling carts, plastic garment racks, packing crates, humidity monitors, coffee gone cold in paper cups, and staff talking in clipped half-sentences. The auction was that evening. The Winter Magnificent Sale, a private, public hybrid event expected to bring in more than $200 million, anchored by the Aurelian Diamond Necklace, a legendary 19th-century piece rumored to have belonged to an empress, lost during a revolution, recovered through a Swiss family trust, and now offered for the first time in almost 70 years. Ethan knew the necklace the way some men knew songs they refused to play. Old mine diamonds, imperial yellow center stone, hand-built platinum retrofit done in the 1920s, hidden hinge under the third right cluster, a repair record that should never be separated from the clasp report. He also knew it should not be at Wexford and Vale, not after what happened 8 years ago. "You Cole?" A broad man with a clipboard and tired eyes approached. "Ethan Cole, Tom Shaw, you're late." Ethan checked the wall clock. "I was told 7. Then someone told you wrong. We're drowning. You know how to handle crates?" "Yes, good. Don't touch jewelry unless someone with a red badge tells you. Don't talk to clients. Don't enter the main gallery during preview. Don't stand near cameras. If anyone asks, your facilities support. Got it?" "Got it." Tom handed him black cotton gloves. "And don't look so serious. Makes rich people nervous." Ethan almost replied that rich people should be nervous. But he needed the job. For the next hour, he moved crates from receiving to staging, carried folded chairs into a side salon, replaced velvet ropes, and helped an intern who was nearly crying because 2 catalog cards had been swapped between a Belle Epoque bracelet and a diamond stomacher. He fixed the order without comment, not by reading the cards, because the text was blurred and wrong anyway, but by noticing that the bracelet case had a shallow impression where the curved clasp had rested and the stomacher case had 2 pressure points from its pin mounts. The intern stared. "How did you know?" "Weight marks." "You work in facilities?" "Today." She blinked at him, then lowered her voice. "Thank you. Don't thank me. Check with a specialist." "I did. He told me not to bother him." Ethan placed the corrected cases on the cart. "Then bother him with confidence." At 8:22, the first real crack appeared. A senior gem specialist named Oliver Banks swept through staging with 2 assistants and a temper polished to museum quality. "Who moved lot 31? He demanded. The intern turned pale. Ethan kept carrying chairbacks. Oliver's eyes landed on him. "You." Ethan stopped. "Yes?" "Did you touch lot 31? "I moved the outer transport case from that table to this cart." "You opened it?" "No." "You expect me to believe that?" Ethan looked at the sealed case. "I expect the seal log to believe it." That made 2 assistants glance at each other. Oliver's face tightened. Facilities staff do not lecture specialists about seal logs. Then consider it a comment about tables. The case was half off the edge. Oliver stepped closer. He was young for his title, handsome in a narrow, impatient way, with a watch that cost more than Ethan's rent for a year. "Do you know what is inside that case?" "A bracelet mislabeled as a stomacher until 10 minutes ago." The intern made a small noise of horror. Oliver froze. "What did you say?" Ethan cursed himself silently. Old habits were not skills when they cost you rent. The catalog cards were reversed. She caught it. He nodded toward the intern. I helped move the cases back. Oliver turned on her. You involve facilities in catalog correction? Ethan spoke before the girl could collapse. No. She identified a possible mismatch, and I told her to verify with a specialist. Oliver's eyes narrowed. And who are you exactly? Before Ethan could answer, the room changed. People always thought power announced itself loudly, but real institutional power entered like temperature. Conversations shortened, backs straightened. The elevator doors opened, and Clara Wexford stepped out. She was 39, maybe 40, tall, elegant, black hair pinned in a low knot, wearing a white suit under a camel coat, and the expression of a woman who had learned young that rooms behaved better when she never appeared surprised. Clara Wexford, CEO and chief auctioneer of Wexford and Vale, daughter of the late Henry Wexford, the man who had once called Ethan a miracle in private and a liability in public. Ethan had not seen Clara in 8 years. She had been overseas when the Marceline Sapphire collapsed, or that was what the press release had said. Her eyes swept the staging room and landed first on Oliver, then the intern, then Ethan's visitor badge. Something flickered in her face. Not recognition, irritation at disorder. Why is the Aurelian prep line delayed? She asked. Oliver recovered quickly. Minor staging issue. Temporary staff touched a catalog lot. Clara looked at Ethan now, really looked, and her gaze did what auction people did when assessing an object they did not want but could not ignore. Suit, shoes, gloves, briefcase, face, temporary staff? Yes, Oliver said. Facilities. Clara's eyes remained on Ethan. Facilities staff with opinions? Ethan kept his tone neutral. Facilities, staff, with gloves. Someone behind Oliver almost laughed, and then wisely turned it into a cough. Clara did not smile. This building is full of objects worth more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes. We cannot afford cleverness from people hired to move chairs. Ethan thought of Lily's lunchbox, Grace's envelope, the overdue electric bill in his drawer. He thought of every room where rich people mistook price for value and silence for consent. Understood. Clara turned to Tom Shaw. Keep temporary staff off the preview floor. Yes, Miss Wexford. Her attention returned to Ethan for one final second. And keep him away from Lot 1. Lot 1, the Aurelian Necklace. Ethan lowered his eyes slightly. Not submission, not quite. Of course. Clara walked away with Oliver at her side, already discussing lighting angles and buyer seating. The intern whispered, I'm sorry. Ethan picked up the next chair. Don't be. She wasn't wrong about the value. But she was rude. Both can be true. By late morning, the auction house had entered the kind of panic that smelled like perfume over smoke. Collectors arrived for private viewings. Insurance representatives checked humidity logs. Security doubled near the main gallery. A documentary crew adjusted cameras for the live-streamed evening sale. Rumors moved faster than staff. A Middle Eastern prince's agent was coming. A tech billionaire had registered through a proxy. A museum trustee planned to challenge provenance. The Aurelian could break the house record. Clara Wexford could save the company after 2 bad years. Oliver Banks could become the youngest jewelry director in Wexford history. And someone on the board wanted Clara replaced if the sale failed. Ethan learned all this while carrying empty crates because people treated service staff like furniture, and furniture heard everything. Ad uns prezice, cincis prezice. He passed the conservation room and stopped because of a sound. Not a crash, not even a clink, a whisper of metal under tension. He knew that sound the way a father knew his child's cough through a closed door. Inside, through a half-open blind, he saw the Aurelian necklace on a black velvet tray beneath white examination lights. It was magnificent. Even from a distance, even after years of refusing to think about it, the necklace had presence. Diamonds caught the light in old fire, not the icy flash of modern stones, but a warmer, deeper glow, like candlelight trapped in ice. At its center hung the yellow diamond, large enough to make greed look reasonable. Oliver Banks stood over it with a senior conservator, a security officer, and Clara Wexford. The velvet case from the lobby sat open nearby. Ethan should have kept walking. Instead, He heard the metal whisper again. His eyes went to the right cluster. Third hinge. Too tight. The retrofit line was wrong. Someone had polished the surrounding mount recently, but not the hinge interior. The clasp tension had been adjusted, badly. His hand moved toward the door before his brain caught up. A guard stepped into his path. Staff corridor is that way. Ethan looked past him. Oliver lifted the necklace slightly with gloved hands. The right side did not settle correctly. Clara noticed nothing. The conservator frowned but said nothing, perhaps because Oliver's title filled the room more than her doubt. Ethan spoke before he could stop himself. "Don't lift it from the center." The room froze. Oliver turned slowly. Clara's face sharpened. The guard looked delighted to have a simple problem. "Excuse me?" Oliver said. Ethan kept his hands visible. "The third right hinge is under tension. If you lift from the center, the cluster will torque against the clasp." Oliver stared at him with open disbelief. "Remove him." The guard touched Ethan's arm. Ethan did not resist. Resistance gave fools a simpler story. Clara stepped closer to the doorway. "Mister?" She glanced at his badge. "Cole. You were instructed to stay away from Lot 1. Yes. And yet?" Ethan looked at the necklace, then at her. "And yet the hinge is wrong." Oliver laughed once. The hinge was inspected by 3 specialists, 2 conservators, and an insurance examiner. Then 4 or 6 people missed it. The room went silent in a way that was almost beautiful. Clara's eyes turned cold. "Do you understand the arrogance of that sentence?" "Yes." "Do you understand this sale is being watched by clients who could buy your entire building?" "Yes." "Then perhaps you understand why I am not taking condition advice from a man hired this morning to move chairs." Ethan thought of Lily saying people make rocks mean. He could walk away. He should walk away. But the necklace made the metal whisper again, and some part of him that Grace had loved and the industry had buried refused to leave a beautiful thing in the hands of proud people about to break it. Ask the conservator to release pressure from the right side before lifting. She already saw it. Clara turned toward the senior conservator. The woman stiffened. Oliver snapped. "He is guessing," Ethan said. "No, he overpolished the visible mount after the adjustment. The hinge interior still shows older oxidation. The clasp tongue sits 0.5 millimeter proud. If you close the display case and move it under heat, it may hold through preview. Under spotlight, with the center drop lifted for the camera, it will fail." The conservator's face went pale. Clara noticed. Oliver noticed. Clara noticing, that was when the room stopped being about jewelry and became about power. "Who are you?" Clara asked, more quietly now. Ethan almost told her. Once, his name would have answered enough. Ethan Cole, the negotiator who saved the Mirren Ruby settlement. The man who identified the false Napoleonic parure in Zurich before 3 governments embarrassed themselves. The specialist Henry Wexford begged to handle the Marceline Sapphire dispute, then erased when the house needed a scapegoat. But names were expensive. He had a daughter, a lunchbox, and rent due Friday. "Temporary floor support," he said. Clara's expression hardened again. "Then support the floor somewhere else." The guard escorted him down the hallway. Behind him, Oliver's voice rose in controlled fury. The conservator's voice lowered into caution, and Clara said something Ethan could not hear. He returned to staging, where Tom Shaw was waiting with the look of a man calculating how quickly paperwork could become unemployment. "What did you do?" Tom asked. "Warn them. Against what?" "Physics." Tom rubbed his face. "Why can't temporary workers ever warn people about coffee spills?" At noon, Ethan was told to take lunch in the basement and not return to the main floor. At 12:07, the intern found him near the freight elevator with a vending machine sandwich he had no appetite for. "Mr. Cole?" "Ethan, I checked the lot 31 cases with Miss Patel from cataloging." "You were right." "Good." And the conservator asked quietly if you could write down what you saw on the Aurelian hinge. Ethan looked up. "Quietly?" "Very quietly." The intern handed him a blank condition note form with no header, no official stamp, and the embarrassed dignity of an institution trying to receive help without admitting it needed any. Ethan almost refused. Then he imagined the necklace under spotlight, the hinge failing live, Clara Wexford's face collapsing, Oliver blaming the conservator, the intern perhaps blamed for staging confusion, the auction house panicking, buyers smelling blood, lawsuits forming before the diamonds hit velvet. He took the form and wrote in plain language, "Inspect right third hinge under angled light. Compare oxidation inside hinge to polished outer mount. Check clasp tongue seating. Do not lift center drop until side tension released. Verify post-final report handling." He did not sign his full name. He wrote EC. At 1:30, Tom told him he was being paid for the day and dismissed early. "Nothing personal," Tom said, which was what people said when something was very personal but not theirs to own. Ethan nodded, collected his briefcase, and walked toward the service exit. He was almost at the door when Clara Wexford's assistant appeared. "Miss Wexford wants to see you." Ethan considered saying no. Pride stood up first. Then Lily's voice did. "Come home with my name still mine." He followed the assistant through a back corridor, up a private elevator, and into a glass-walled office overlooking the main auction gallery. The room was beautiful in the way expensive rooms often were, careful, cold, and designed to make apology feel out of place. Clara stood behind her desk, coat removed, cream blouse immaculate, expression unreadable. On the desk lay Ethan's unsigned condition note. "EC," she said. "Convenient initials." Ethan said nothing. She picked up the note. "The conservator confirms there is unusual tension in the hinge. Then don't lift from the center. Oliver says the adjustment is minor." "Oliver is wrong." "You say that easily." "I've had practice." Her eyes narrowed. "Have we met?" The question entered the room like a match near old paper. Ethan looked past her to the gallery below, where staff arranged chairs for people who would bid millions on beauty and never ask whose silence polished it. "Not recently." Clara studied him. "My father knew someone named Cole." Ethan's heartbeat slowed, not from calm, but from danger becoming specific. "Many people are named Cole." "Ethan Cole?" He turned back. There it was, his name, spoken in the house that buried it. Her face changed as recognition assembled itself from fragments. Old scandal, whispered settlement, a brilliant negotiator removed from a sale, a report that made him sound reckless, unstable, perhaps corrupt. "You're the Marceline man." He almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the Marceline man sounded like a ghost story told to young specialists so they would fear disobedience. "I was. You were banned from Wexford and Vale. I was made unnecessary. My father said you nearly destroyed a private sale. Your father said many things." Clara's eyes flashed. "Careful," Ethan smiled without warmth. "That was exactly his advice to me before he signed the statement." The office became very quiet. Clara looked down at the note again. "Why are you here?" "Because your HR department needed temporary floor support, and I needed a day's pay." "That is not an answer." "It is the only one I owe you." She stepped from behind the desk. "If you knew this house, if you knew my father, if you knew the Aurelian well enough to see a hinge problem from a hallway, then you also know what happens if you are wrong tonight." "Yes, then help us." Ethan looked at her, surprised not by the request but by how much it cost her to make it. "You just dismissed me. I am asking you now." "No, Miss Wexford. You are protecting the sale." "Of course I am protecting the sale." "Then protect it properly. Postpone Lot 1 until the hinge is verified. Disclose a condition update to registered bidders. Separate the necklace from the live camera lift, and question everyone who touched it after the final report." Clara's jaw tightened. "If we postpone Lot 1, buyers panic. If the necklace fails under camera, buyers litigate. If we disclose an issue this late, the price collapses. If you hide it, the house collapses." She stared at him. That was the first negotiation, not about money, not about diamonds, about which disaster she preferred to meet in daylight. Clara walked to the window and looked down at the gallery. "You always speak like that?" "Like what?" "As if every room has already confessed and is waiting for the people inside to catch up." Ethan thought of Grace. "Only when rooms are loud." Clara turned back. "My father said you were brilliant and impossible. He used the first word before I questioned him, and the second after." "Questioned him about what?" Ethan reached for his briefcase. "Ask whoever changed the mounting after the final condition report." Clara's face went still. You think someone altered the Aurelian inside my house? I think the hinge was touched after the report. Whether that was alteration, repair, concealment, or incompetence is your next room. And if I ask you to stay? Ethan looked at his watch. Lily would be at school now, probably trading carrots badly despite his rules. He imagined Grace's sealed envelope inside his briefcase, waiting like a verdict. He imagined walking away, getting on the train, telling Lily the diamonds were not mean because he had not stayed long enough to listen. I am not your employee. Consultant, then? No. Why? Because consultants can be ignored politely. If I stay, you follow my conditions. Clara's eyebrows lifted. You are in no position to make demands. Then I'll take the service elevator. He moved toward the door. Clara said, "Wait." He stopped but did not turn. There were moments in a negotiation when silence did more work than courage. Clara let out a controlled breath. Conditions. Ethan turned. 1. The conservator has authority over handling, not Oliver. 2. All post. Report access logs are pulled now, before anyone can clean them. 3. No live lift of the center drop until hinge tension is released and documented. 4. If the condition changed after the published report, bidders are told before bidding. 5. No one uses my name publicly. Clara looked at him for a long moment. You still think your name matters that much? Ethan's face did not move, but the blow landed. My daughter does. Clara looked away first. That was when the assistant rushed in without knocking. Miss Wexford, I'm sorry, but Mr. Al-Rashid's representative is here early. So is the Delacroix Museum trustee. They're both asking for a private viewing of the Aurelian. Oliver says we should proceed. Ethan said, no. The assistant blinked. Clara did not. Below them, in the gallery, 2 groups of powerful people had entered from opposite doors, each with advisors, security, and the quiet hunger of bidders who believed the room was built for them. Clara's sale, her company, her father's legacy, and Ethan's buried past all tightened around one necklace, with a hinge that whispered under pressure. Clara picked up the phone on her desk, eyes still on Ethan. Get the senior conservator to Gallery 1, pull the access logs, tell Oliver Lot 1 does not move until I say so. She paused, listening to protest on the line, then said in a voice cold enough to cut glass, because the man you told security to remove just saved us from touching it wrong. Ethan closed his briefcase slowly. For the first time that day, the building did not treat him like furniture. It treated him like a problem. And in Wexford and Vale, problems worth fearing were always escorted upstairs before the truth reached the floor. Clara Wexford did not move for 3 full seconds after ordering Oliver Banks away from the Aurelian necklace, and in those 3 seconds Ethan Cole watched the entire auction house rearrange itself around a truth no one wanted to touch. The assistant froze by the door with her tablet pressed against her chest. Somewhere below, the gallery hummed with money, perfume, security radios, and the low voices of people who had flown across oceans to compete for a necklace that now sat under white conservation lights, with a hinge whispering like a warning. Clara lowered the phone slowly, her eyes still on Ethan, and for the first time since he had entered Wexford and Vale that morning, she looked at him not as staff, not as an inconvenience, not even as the disgraced ghost of an old scandal, but as a man standing between her and a disaster she could not afford to misunderstand. You have 10 minutes, she said. No, Ethan replied. Her jaw tightened. Excuse me? 10 minutes is what people give a problem they still hope is smaller than it is. You need 30. I do not have 30. Then you don't have the necklace. The assistant's eyes widened. Clara's expression sharpened into the kind of anger rich families pass down like silverware, polished until it looked like discipline. You are in my building, Mr. Cole, and the necklace is under your roof, Miss Wexford. That means whatever happens to it becomes your sentence, not mine. He did not raise his voice. Raising his voice would have made him sound desperate, and desperation was a discount powerful people love to apply to other people's truth. Clara stared at him, then looked through the glass wall toward Gallery 1, where 2 buyer groups had already begun circling the empty display pedestal, like sharks around a shadow. 30 minutes, she said at last. But if you are wrong, I will have security walk you out through the front doors. If I'm wrong, I'll walk myself out. And if you're right, Ethan picked up his cracked briefcase. Then you'll decide whether you want to save the sale or save the lie. That landed. He saw it. Not because Clara flinched, but because she became still in the exact way people did when a sentence found a locked room inside them. She turned to the assistant. Call Gallery 1. Tell Mr. Al-Rashid's representative and the Delacroix trustee that Lot 1 is undergoing final light verification. Offer them coffee, privacy, and a preview of the Imperial Emerald Tiara. Do not say delay. The assistant nodded and hurried out. Come, Clara said to Ethan, and do not touch anything until I say so. That rule should apply to everyone. She shot him a look, but did not argue, which told him she was learning quickly or frightened enough to listen. They moved through a private corridor into the conservation suite, where Oliver Banks stood beside the black velvet tray with his arms folded and a red flush climbing from his collar to his jaw. The senior conservator, Billionaire, stood on the other side of the table, her gloved hands held away from the necklace, as if she had already chosen not to be the last person to touch it before failure. A security officer watched the room with professional blankness. The Aurelian necklace lay under angled light, beautiful enough to make everyone stupid if they let it. Ethan did not let it. Beauty was evidence too, but only when you stopped worshipping it long enough to read what it had survived. Miss Wexford, Oliver said before Clara could speak, this is unnecessary and damaging. The clasp passed inspection. The hinge passed inspection. We have bidders waiting. Clara did not look away from the necklace. Mr. Cole believes the hinge was altered after the final condition report. Oliver laughed once, short and polished. Mr. Cole believes many things, apparently. Ethan set his briefcase on a side chair and did not open it. Pull the final condition photographs. Oliver's eyes snapped to him. You do not give instructions in my department, Clara said. Today he does. The words struck the room harder than a dropped tray. Priya looked down, not hiding satisfaction quickly enough. Oliver turned to Clara with disbelief. You cannot be serious. Clara's voice stayed cold. I am serious enough to ask why the senior conservator is pale. Priya inhaled carefully. Because the right third hinge is sitting under tension, and because I was told yesterday that it had been stabilized before I could review the original repair notes. Clara's eyes moved to Oliver. By whom? Oliver's mouth opened, then closed. The adjustment was routine, Ethan said. Who performed it? Oliver looked at him with open contempt. You have been here 5 hours. And someone touched a $200 million necklace after the final report. Time in building is less important than proximity to the mistake. It was not a mistake. The room went silent again. Ethan saw Clara catch it, Priya catch it, even the security officer catch it. Oliver realized one beat too late that he had defended intention before anyone accused him of accident. Ethan stepped closer to the table, but kept his hands behind his back. Then what was it? Oliver's lips thinned. A correction. Clara's voice was nearly a whisper. A correction made after the final condition report? A minor correction, without my approval? With operational discretion. Ethan looked at the necklace. Operational discretion doesn't leave oxidation inside a hinge and polish outside the mount. Oliver turned on him. You are not a specialist here. No, that's why I'm asking questions instead of covering answers. Clara lifted one hand. Enough, Priya, photographs. Priya moved to a workstation and opened the final condition file. The screen displayed high-resolution images of the Aurelian necklace taken 48 hours earlier. Front, back, clasp, hinge, center drop, side clusters, maker's marks, retrofit points. Ethan stepped near, careful not to crowd her. The right third hinge in the photograph sat lower, not by much, but enough. The clasp tongue rested flush. The tiny shadow beneath the cluster was even. He pointed without touching the screen. There. Clara leaned in. I see nothing. You're looking for damage. Look for comfort. She frowned. Comfort? Old jewelry settles like old houses. Pieces carry their own habits. In the final photo, the right cluster sits like it knows where to rest. On the tray now, it's being forced to agree with a different angle. Priya enlarged the current live camera feed beside the old photo. The difference appeared small, almost insulting in its subtlety. Clara stared until recognition finally arrived. It's higher, 0.5 millimeter, Ethan said. Maybe less. Enough. Oliver said. 0.5 millimeter does not justify delaying a record sale. Ethan looked at him. It does when the center stone weighs the argument down, Priya nodded reluctantly. If the center drop is lifted for the camera, the torque moves here. If the hinge is tight, the clasp takes the stress. It may not fail immediately, but under heat and repeated handling. She did not finish. She did not need to. Clara turned fully toward Oliver. Who authorized the correction? Oliver held her gaze. I did. Who performed it? A bench consultant. Name: Gerald Voss. Priya's head turned sharply. Voss hasn't been approved for imperial period mounts in years. Oliver snapped. He has experience. Ethan's voice went quiet. Gerald Voss was suspended after the Bellerose clasp substitution. Oliver stared at him. How would you know that? Because I negotiated the insurer's silence. Clara looked at Ethan then, truly startled, and in that look the past came closer. 8 years ago, rooms like this had known him not by his suit but by his function. When a collector claimed fraud without wanting police, when a museum found a swapped stone but needed donors' calm, when an heir realized the family jewel had been replaced 3 generations earlier and wanted truth without ruin, Ethan Cole had been called in. He had not been the loudest person in those rooms. He had been the person who made louder people admit what they needed before they destroyed what they wanted. Why was Voss near Lot 1? Clara asked Oliver. Because the clasp sat loose after transport. Priya's eyes widened. You told me the transport check was clean. It was clean enough, Clara said. That is not a phrase I want within 20 feet of the Aurelian necklace. Oliver's confidence began to crack, not collapse, just enough to show the structure beneath it. We had pressure from the board. The necklace had to be camera-ready. The Delacroix trustee had already raised doubts about prior repairs. If we reported a clasp issue, buyers would weaponize it. Ethan nodded slightly. So you chose to hide the weakness and created a larger one. Oliver glared. You make it sound criminal. No, I make it sound expensive. Criminal depends on what you did after you knew. That sentence shifted the air again. Clara looked from Ethan to Oliver. Did you update the internal condition addendum? Oliver hesitated. Priya closed her eyes. Clara's voice cut through the room. Oliver. Drafted. Not circulated. Why? He looked toward the door, toward the gallery, toward every invisible pressure sitting in the building, because Henry Wexford's last acquisition cannot go to market under a question mark. Clara went still. Ethan looked at her and saw the wound open. Henry Wexford, her father. The old man's shadow lived in the marble, the bronze doors, the private elevator, the staff vocabulary, and apparently the necklace itself. Clara said, Do not use my father as a procedure. Oliver lowered his head, but not in apology. The board will. That was the second truth of the day. The necklace was not only a sale, it was Clara's test. If the Aurelian broke records, she remained untouchable. If it faltered, Henry Wexford's loyalists could call her unsteady, sentimental, too transparent, insufficiently ruthless. Ethan had seen dynasties run on objects before. Jewels were just crowns without governments. Clara took a slow breath. Priya, can the tension be released safely? Priya looked at Ethan before she answered. Clara noticed. Ethan pretended not to. Yes, Priya said, but not in 10 minutes, not for a live lift, and not without updating the handling report. How long? 45 minutes minimum for safe release and documentation. Longer if we find tool marks. Oliver muttered. There goes the private viewing. Ethan said, Not necessarily. Clara turned to him. Explain. He looked through the conservation room window into the gallery beyond. You have 2 buyer groups waiting. They came early because each wants to see if the other is weak. If you delay without structure, they smell panic. If you control the delay, you create exclusivity. Clara's eyes sharpened. Go on. Do not say the necklace has a problem. Say final handling verification is being conducted under enhanced imperial jewelry protocol because of the piece's historic construction. Offer each buyer a private provenance briefing in separate rooms. Give them something to do with their pride while Priya does her work. Oliver scoffed. That sounds like manipulation. Ethan looked at him. So does hiding a clasp adjustment. This version protects the object and discloses, if disclosure becomes necessary. Clara folded her arms. And the trustee, the Delacroix Museum trustee, is not here only to bid. Museums rarely enjoy spending money publicly unless they are defending moral territory. They want provenance control. Give them the archival letters first, not the necklace. Make them feel intellectually superior while they wait. Clara's mouth tightened, almost a smile, but not quite. And Al-Rashid's representative? Private collectors hate being treated like museums. Give him the stone history and insurance architecture. Make delay feel like privilege, not obstruction. You say that as if people are Locks. No, Ethan said. Locks are more honest. Priya made a small sound that might have been a laugh. Clara turned to her. Begin the release. Document everything. No one touches the center drop. Security, seal the room. Oliver, you are relieved from handling Lot 1 pending review. Oliver's face went hard. Clara. Miss Wexford. The correction was quiet, devastating. Oliver stepped back. You will regret humiliating me in front of temporary staff, Ethan sighed. Never threaten someone while standing beside the evidence you mishandled. Oliver looked ready to speak again, but Clara said, Leave. He left, not because he accepted it, but because the guard moved half a step closer, and because pride often preferred exits when records were running. When the door closed, Clara turned on Ethan. Do not correct my staff in front of me unless I ask you to. He threatened you in front of the necklace, and you enjoyed answering. No, I enjoy clean rooms. There are no clean rooms in auction houses. Then stop pretending dust is heritage. Priya froze over the tray. Clara stared at Ethan, anger and something else moving behind her eyes. He knew he had gone too far. Not because the sentence was false, but because truth poorly timed could become vanity. Grace had told him that once after he destroyed a dinner with one accurate observation too many. He lowered his voice. I apologize. That was unnecessary. Clara's surprise was almost imperceptible. Was it? Yes, but not untrue? That is usually why apologies are needed. Priya whispered. Can we please save the necklace before this becomes philosophy? Ethan stepped back. Clara exhaled through her nose, then pressed the intercom. Send the Delacroix trustee to Salon 2 and Mr. Al-Rashid's representative to the library. No crossover. No photography of Lot 1 until further notice. Tell them I am personally conducting final protocol. She looked at Ethan. You are coming with me. No. Again? If I am seen advising you publicly, someone will search my name before the first bid. Your father made sure of what they'll find. Clara's expression changed. My father is dead. His statements are not. What exactly did he say about you? Ethan looked at Priya, then the guard, then the sealed necklace. Not here. Clara studied him. Fine, you stay behind glass. Feed me notes through Priya's assistant. That will look worse. Then what? Ethan picked up a blank catalog folder from the side table and handed it to her. You know the material. You don't need me to speak for you. You need me to structure the room before you enter it. Structure it. Delacroix first. Open with conservation humility, not sales confidence. Museums distrust auction perfection. Say the necklace's historic construction requires slower handling than modern pieces, and that Wexford is prioritizing preservation over spectacle. Let them think they would have done the same. Clara nodded despite herself. Al-Rashid, do not apologize for delay. Private collectors hear apology as weakness. Say, enhanced protocol protects bidding integrity and ensures the winner receives a piece whose condition is not compromised by presentation. Use winner, not buyer. Why? Buyer spends money, winner defeats other people. The guard looked impressed against his will. Priya kept working with tiny instruments, her shoulders steadying as the room's power finally shifted from ego to craft. Clara walked to the door, then stopped. And if they ask who triggered the protocol? Ethan looked at the necklace. Say the object did. Clara held his gaze one more second, then left. For the next 30 minutes, Ethan remained in the conservation room while Priya worked. He did not touch the necklace. He watched. That was harder. Watching skilled hands do delicate work always felt like prayer to him, even when he no longer knew who he was praying to. Priya used angled light, magnification, and patience. She loosened nothing until she had photographed everything. She spoke softly as she worked, partly to the record and partly to Ethan. Outer mount polished within 24 hours, maybe less. Hinge interior untouched. Clasp tongue slightly proud. Micro scratch pattern near the rear catch. Ethan leaned in but kept distance. Tool slip. Yes. Voss? Maybe. Could be anyone using his kit. Ethan looked toward the access log terminal. Pull tool checkout. Already requested. She glanced at him. You really were Ethan Cole. He smiled faintly. People keep saying that in the past tense today. In my training, your name came up once. That sounds unfortunate. Professor Danbury said you could calm a room faster than legal counsel because you didn't start by asking who was right. You asked what everyone was afraid to lose. Ethan looked down at his hands. Danbury was kind. He said you disappeared after Marceline. I was helped. Priya waited. Conservators understood silence better than most. Finally, she said, was it really your fault? Ethan looked at the Aurelian's yellow center stone. No, the word left him before he approved it. He had not said it so plainly in years. Not to clients, not to Mrs. Donnelly, not even to Lily, because saying no required believing there was still a court somewhere competent enough to hear it. Priya did not pity him. That was a gift. Then why did you let them bury you? Ethan thought of Grace in the hospital, Lily newborn and red-faced, bills multiplying, Henry Wexford's lawyers offering silence with one hand and ruin with the other, because they didn't bury me alone. Priya looked up. He said no more. At 2:18, Clara returned from the buyer briefings looking controlled but paler. Delacroix wants conservation notes before bidding. Al-Rashid's representative wants assurance the necklace will remain eligible for live sale. The board chair wants me upstairs in 10 minutes. Oliver has sent 3 messages implying you are interfering with house procedure, and my father's former counsel, Edmund Vale, just arrived without being invited. Ethan's attention sharpened. Vale? You know him. I know his signatures. Clara frowned. What does that mean? Before Ethan could answer, Priya inhaled sharply over the microscope. I found something. Everyone moved, but Ethan raised a hand. Slow. They slowed. Priya adjusted the monitor so they could see the magnified underside of the clasp tongue. There, almost hidden along the inner edge, was a tiny engraved mark, not a maker's mark, not a workshop number, but 3 shallow strokes forming a private repair code. Ethan felt the past step into the room wearing polished shoes. That's not original, Priya said. Clara looked at Ethan. What is it? Ethan's mouth went dry. A transfer mark. From what? He did not answer immediately because 8 years disappeared beneath him. The Marceline sapphire, the private sale, the substituted clasp, the report he refused to sign, Henry Wexford's office, Edmund Vale placing a document on the table and saying a young father should think very carefully before choosing pride over his family's stability. Priya enlarged the mark. Ethan knew it. He had seen it once before on the piece that ruined him. From the Marceline clasp, he said quietly. Clara stared. That's impossible. The Marceline sapphire was destroyed in a fire after the insurance settlement. No, Ethan said. That's what your father's statement said. Clara stepped back as if the necklace had become something living. You are telling me a component from the Marceline scandal is inside the Aurelian necklace? I am telling you the mark matches the repair code from a clasp assembly that was supposed to be gone. Why would anyone put it here? Ethan looked toward the door through which Oliver had left, then toward the private elevator where Edmund Vale had arrived without invitation. Because a hidden weakness inside a famous necklace is leverage, over a sale, over a CEO, over a house, or over the man who recognized it. Clara whispered, My father knew? Ethan thought of Henry Wexford's smile, soft as velvet over steel. Your father paid me not to prove it. The sentence hung between them like a broken chandelier. Clara's face hardened because daughters of powerful men often learn to protect the dead before they learn to question them. Be careful, Mr. Cole. No, Ethan said, and this time his voice changed, not louder, deeper. I was careful 8 years ago. I was careful when your father's counsel told me my daughter's medical insurance could become complicated if I fought. I was careful when Grace begged me not to gamble our newborn's safety against a family that owned newspapers, insurers, and half the experts who would testify. I was careful when I let your house call me unstable instead of calling your father a fraud in public. I have been careful for 8 years, Miss Wexford. That is why I am standing here in a borrowed jacket moving chairs. Clara said nothing. Priya looked down, giving him privacy the room could not. The security officer shifted uncomfortably. Ethan closed his eyes once. Lily's rule. Breach. Come home with my name still mine. He opened them. Pull the Marceline file. Clara's voice was barely audible. It's sealed. Then unseal it. Only the board chair and legacy council have access. Edmund Vale. Yes. Ethan nodded. Then Edmund Vale did not arrive because of the Aurelian. He arrived because someone told him I was here. As if summoned by the sound of his name, Clara's assistant appeared in the doorway, pale. Miss Wexford, Mr. Vale is upstairs with the board chair. He says the temporary worker in conservation must be removed immediately due to prior legal restrictions. Clara's eyes moved to Ethan. The old trap opened in front of him with almost nostalgic efficiency. Prior legal restrictions. Not truth, not evidence, not confrontation. Paper. Quiet paper. The kind that made security guards move and reputations disappear. Ethan reached for his briefcase and opened it at last. Inside, beneath the handkerchief-wrapped loop and old auction paddle, was Grace's sealed envelope. He did not open it. Not yet. He removed only the loop. Miss Wexford, he said, you have 2 choices. Her eyebrows lifted despite the tension. Only 2? For the next 5 minutes, yes. You can remove me and let Vale control the Marceline file before the Aurelian goes live, or you can keep me in this room, freeze Lot 1, and make him explain in writing why a temporary floor worker is more dangerous to your auction than an undocumented component inside your star necklace. Clara looked through the glass toward the gallery, where the buyers waited, the staff whispered, the cameras adjusted, and the empire her father built balanced on a hinge smaller than a grain of rice. If I freeze Lot 1, she said, the sale may collapse. Ethan looked at the Aurelian, its diamonds burning under the light, its secret mark finally visible. If you don't, the sale may succeed. Clara's gaze snapped to him. He finished quietly, and that might be worse. For a long moment, the only sound in the conservation room was the rain tapping against the high windows and the faint electric hum of the microscope. Then Clara took the condition note from Priya, signed her name across the bottom, and handed it to the security officer. Seal Gallery 1. No movement of Lot 1. No private access. No photography. No live presentation. Tell the board I am coming upstairs with Mr. Cole. The assistant looked terrified. With him? Clara's face became pure Wexford steel. Yes. If Mr. Vale thinks Ethan Cole is the threat, then I want the threat in the room when he explains why. Ethan slipped the loop into his pocket and closed his briefcase. His phone buzzed once. He glanced down. A text from Mrs. Donnelly. Lily is fine. School called. Someone from a private office asked if she could be released early for a family appointment. I said absolutely not. Ethan went very still. The room blurred for half a heartbeat. Clara noticed immediately. What is it? Ethan turned the phone so she could see only the message, not Lily's photo on the lock screen. Clara's face changed from corporate crisis to something sharper, human, and horrified. Someone contacted your daughter's school. Ethan put the phone away with hands that did not shake because he refused to give the room that too. Now we know which room Vale thinks he's in, Clara whispered. I didn't authorize that. Ethan looked at her, and this time there was no old politeness left between them. Then prove you control your house. He walked toward the private elevator beside her, no longer temporary staff, no longer hidden, no longer careful in the way powerful men had purchased. Behind them, the Aurelian necklace lay under seal with its secret mark exposed, and above them, in a boardroom built from Henry Wexford's legacy, the people who had stolen Ethan Cole's name were about to learn that the master negotiator had returned with nothing left to sell. The private elevator rose through Wexford and Vale with the smooth silence of a machine designed for people who never wanted to hear the distance between service floors and boardrooms, and Ethan Cole stood beside Clara Wexford with his cracked briefcase in one hand, Lily's pink hair tie hidden beneath his cuff, and the text from Mrs. Donnelly burning in his mind like a brand. Someone from a private office asked if Lily could be released early for a family appointment. I said absolutely not. He read the words once before putting the phone away, and that was enough. A man could survive many kinds of threats if they arrived directly, but the ones that entered through school doors, lunch schedules, and the names of children were different. They did not threaten the body first. They threatened the room where a father kept his breath. Clara stood rigid beside him, staring at the elevator doors as the numbers climbed. "I will have security verify every call to your daughter's school," she said. Ethan did not look at her. "No. No. You will have security preserve records. You will not call the school from Wexford. You will not send anyone. You will not let this house put one more unfamiliar voice near my daughter." Clara turned toward him. "Then what do you want?" "Your assistant will write down the exact time I received the message. Your security chief will preserve internal phone logs, visitor logs, contractor access, and any call placed by your office, board office, legacy council, Oliver Banks, or outside consultants to Lily's school district. Then I will call Mrs. Donnelly from my phone. She will put the principal on. The principal will confirm Lily is safe. After that, we talk about your necklace." Clara's jaw tightened. "You are giving instructions again." "Yes. To the CEO of Wexford and Vale." "No. To the person whose building is being used to reach my child." The elevator doors opened before she could answer, revealing a private floor that looked nothing like the basement staging level. Here, the air was warmer, quieter, and scented faintly of leather, citrus, and old money. The walls held framed photographs of record-breaking sales, tiaras under spotlights, emeralds on black velvet, smiling collectors who looked as if they had purchased not jewelry but permission to be remembered. At the end of the corridor, double doors stood open to a boardroom where 6 people waited around a long walnut table. Edmund Vale stood at the window with his back turned, silver hair immaculate, dark suit without a crease, hands folded behind him like a man examining a city that had already agreed to belong to him. Beside him sat Beatrice Lang, the board chair, narrow-eyed and severe, with pearl earrings the size of small promises. Oliver Banks stood near the far wall, no longer flushed, now composed in the dangerous way of a man who had recovered from embarrassment and chosen revenge. 2 other board members whispered near a coffee service. Clara's assistant, pale and efficient, hovered by a side table with a tablet. When Ethan entered, the whispers stopped. Edmund Vale turned slowly. 8 years had added lines to his face but had not changed the cold courtesy in his eyes. He looked at Ethan with the mild sadness of a man disappointed to find a stain still visible after cleaning. "Mr. Cole," he said, "this is an unfortunate surprise." Ethan set his briefcase beside the nearest empty chair but did not sit. "Then we're both having the day we deserve." Beatrice Lang frowned. "Clara, why is this man in the boardroom?" Clara closed the doors behind them. "Because Lot 1 has been sealed pending condition review, because an undocumented component from the Marceline Sapphire may be present in the Aurelian clasp assembly, and because Mr. Vale seems to know why Mr. Cole's presence is more urgent than a $200 million auction." The sentence landed cleanly. Board members straightened. Oliver's face tightened. Edmund did not move, but Ethan saw his right thumb brush once against his cufflink. There, the smallest tell. Ethan had negotiated with men like Edmund before. Men who believed the body was beneath them, until fear made it honest. Beatrice turned to Edmund. "Marceline?" Edmund gave a soft sigh. "This is precisely why Mr. Cole should not be in this building." Ethan smiled faintly. "Because I recognize old work? Because you are subject to legal restrictions concerning Wexford and Vale matters, including the Marceline Sapphire transaction." Clara looked at Ethan. "Restrictions?" Edmund lifted a leather folder from the table and opened it with theatrical reluctance. "A settlement agreement, confidentiality provisions, non-disparagement, access prohibition to certain legacy files." Mr. Cole accepted consideration in exchange for leaving this house and its clients undisturbed. Ethan looked at the folder, then at Edmund. You always did make hush money sound like charity. Oliver stepped forward. He was removed for cause. Ethan did not look at him. Say the cause. Oliver hesitated. Professional misconduct. Ethan turned then. Say the misconduct. Oliver's lips pressed together. Edmund answered smoothly. Mr. Cole attempted to disrupt a private sale by raising unsupported concerns after the parties had reached final terms. Unsupported, Ethan repeated. That word carried a lot of furniture for you. Clara took the folder from Edmund and scanned the first page. Did you sign this? Ethan looked at her. Yes. The boardroom shifted with that single admission. People trusted signatures more than truth because signatures looked less emotional. Edmund let the silence work. Ethan let it work too. Good negotiators never feared silence. They priced it. Clara looked up. Why? Ethan's eyes moved to Edmund. Ask him what he threatened before I signed. Edmund's expression cooled. Careful. Ethan laughed once. Quiet and humorless. There it is again. Careful. Your favorite word for other people's fear. Beatrice tapped the table. We do not have time for old grievances. There are buyers waiting downstairs, a live sale scheduled, and press already asking why Lot 1 is not visible. Ethan turned to her. Then you should want the shortest path to a safe answer. I want the sale protected. Protected from what? A condition issue? A provenance defect? A legacy fraud? A buyer challenge? A board challenge? Or a poor man in a borrowed jacket? Beatrice's eyes narrowed. You are impertinent. No. I am categorizing risk. You should try it. Clara almost said his name. Warning or admiration. He could not tell. Edmund closed the folder. This is absurd. The Aurelian necklace is fully vetted. If Mr. Cole has found a maintenance mark, similar to one from another piece, that may be coincidental, or the result of a historical workshop practice, or, more likely, a misinterpretation by a man with reason to resent this institution. Ethan nodded. Good. That is the room you want. Edmund blinked once. Excuse me? The resentment room. It keeps everyone focused on whether I'm bitter, instead of whether the mark exists. He turned to Clara. Do not let him put me at the center. Put the object at the center. Clara's eyes sharpened. Ethan continued. Question 1. Does the mark exist? Priya can answer. Question 2. Is it documented in the final condition report? The report can answer. Question 3. Was the clasp adjusted after the final report? Oliver already answered. Question 4. Who had access after final report? Logs answer. Question 5. Why did Mr. Vale arrive uninvited after the object was sealed? He can answer now. Edmund's mouth tightened. Clara looked at her assistant. Get Priya on the conference screen. Pull access logs to this room. Full chain, not summary. Oliver said, Clara, this is madness. Clara turned on him. You authorized an undocumented correction to Lot 1 after the final report. A minor correction. You used Gerald Voss. Oliver looked toward Edmund before he could stop himself. Ethan saw it. Clara saw it. Edmund saw them seeing it. The room acquired a new shape. Oliver, Ethan said quietly. Who gave you Voss's number? Oliver's jaw worked. He is known in the trade. Not the question. Clara stepped closer. Who gave you his number? Oliver looked at Edmund again. Edmund lifted one hand. Gerald Voss has handled discreet legacy repairs for this house for decades. I may have provided a contact when Mr. Banks faced a timing issue. Beatrice exhaled sharply. Edmund did not look at her. A harmless accommodation. Ethan said, harmless accommodations do not usually call children's schools. The boardroom went cold. Clara's face changed. We are discussing that now. Edmund's eyes narrowed with mild distaste. I beg your pardon? Ethan removed his phone and placed it on the table screen. Down. At the same time, Mr. Vale arrived to remove me. Someone from a private office contacted my daughter's school claiming a family appointment. My daughter is 8. Beatrice leaned back. Oliver looked genuinely startled, which Ethan noted. Clara's assistant covered her mouth. Edmund's expression did not change enough. That was the problem. Innocent people reacted to children as children. Men like Edmund reacted to them as complications. That is a serious allegation, Edmund said. No, Ethan replied. It is a serious event. We do not know yet who owns it. Clara said, my assistant will preserve all internal and external call logs immediately. Edmund raised his eyebrows. You would preserve privileged communications based on a text message? Ethan answered before Clara could. Preserve does not mean disclose. You know that. But if you object to preservation before anyone asks for consent, the room gets smaller for you. For the first time, Edmund's courtesy thinned. You have not lost your talent for making ordinary procedure sound sinister, and you have not lost your talent for using ordinary procedure to hide sinister things. Clara looked between them. Enough. Call the school. Ethan picked up his phone and called Mrs. Donnelly. She answered on the first ring. Tell me you're not dead or arrested. Not yet. Is Lily safe? Yes. She is with Principal Harris in the main office, eating the emergency granola bar she says tastes like library dust. Ethan closed his eyes for half a second. Air returned to the room. Can you put the principal on speaker? Already here. A woman's calm voice entered the line. Mr. Cole. Lily is safe. She is in my office with Mrs. Donnelly. No one has access to her except approved contacts. We received a call at 1:47 p.m. from a woman identifying herself as calling on behalf of a private family office. She said you had authorized early release for a medical appointment. We declined because the caller could not provide the pickup code. Ethan opened his eyes. Thank you, Principal Harris. Please preserve the caller ID, voicemail if any, and office notes. Do not return the call. Do not identify my workplace to anyone. Already done. Lily's voice came faintly from the background. Dad? Ethan's chest tightened. Hi, Firefly. Mrs. Donnelly says you are being dramatic with diamonds. Mrs. Donnelly knows many things. Are you coming home? Everyone in the boardroom disappeared for 1 second. Clara, Edmund, Oliver, the sale, the necklace, the old scandal, all of it faded behind the small voice, asking the only question that mattered. Yes, Ethan said. Not right now, but yes. With your name still yours? He heard Clara inhale softly. Ethan looked at Edmund Vale as he answered. That is the plan. Lily was quiet, then said, Good. Don't let them borrow it. He almost smiled. Never again. He ended the call and placed the phone back into his pocket. No one spoke. Even Beatrice Lang looked less interested in the sale for a moment. Clara's voice was low. I am sorry. Ethan did not accept it. Not because she did not mean it, but because apologies given too early often tried to close rooms before evidence entered. Preserve the logs. Clara nodded to her assistant, who began typing furiously. Edmund said, Clara, this is getting out of control. She turned slowly. Yes, that is why I am taking control. By letting him stage a tribunal in your boardroom? By keeping Lot 1 sealed until I know what is in my necklace and who touched it. Edmund's face hardened. Your father would have understood discretion. Clara's eyes flashed. My father is not chairing this sale. No, but his reputation is supporting it. Then perhaps it should learn to stand. Beatrice whispered, Clara. But Clara did not retreat. Ethan saw the moment clearly. A daughter taking one step out from a dead man's shadow and discovering the shadow had staff. The conference screen lit up, and Priya Nair appeared from conservation, magnified images ready behind her. Her voice was steady. I have documented the transfer mark inside the clasp tongue. It is not listed in the final condition report, the original imperial construction notes, the 1920s retrofit notes, or the catalog appendix. The right third hinge was adjusted after final photography. Tool marks suggest recent handling. I have not completed material comparison. Clara asked, Does the necklace remain safe? Safe if not lifted or worn, not safe for live presentation as planned. Oliver spoke sharply. Priya, you are overstating. Priya looked directly through the screen. No, Oliver. I understated yesterday because you told me timing mattered more than my discomfort. I won't make that mistake twice. Beatrice closed her eyes briefly. Edmund's gaze remained on Ethan, not Priya. The assistant projected the access logs onto another screen. Final condition report completed 48 hours earlier, conservation lock sealed, gallery prep access by Priya, Oliver, 2 assistants, security, and then a late-night legacy, override at 11:38 p.m., the previous evening. User credential, HV, Legacy Council. Clara turned. Henry Vale? Edmund's expression cooled. That is an old credential category. Active under whose authority? The assistant swallowed. Legacy Council Administrative Office. Clara looked at Edmund. Yours. Edmund said. Administrative access does not prove physical handling. Ethan nodded. Correct. Everyone looked at him. He continued. It proves the door opened. Tool marks prove someone handled. Voss explains possible hands. Oliver explains motive to avoid delay. Edmund explains access. What we still need is sequence. Beatrice asked, why are you helping him build the case if the case points at you? Edmund's tone sharpened. Because he builds rooms where others look guilty until they pay him to open a door. Ethan smiled faintly. You still think negotiation is bribery with manners? Edmund looked at Clara. You need to remove him. Clara did not move. Ethan said, ask him why. Edmund's patience cracked. Because you are legally barred from matters involving Marceline and related Wexford legacy assets. Ethan turned to Clara. Related. There's the word. Clara looked down at the settlement agreement again. Marceline and related Wexford legacy assets, she read. Her eyes lifted. Why would a settlement about the Marceline sapphire include related legacy assets? Edmund said. Standard protective language. Ethan shook his head. No, standard would protect parties, claims, sale materials, client identities. Related legacy assets means they knew Marceline was not the only compromised object. Clara's face went pale. How many? Edmund did not answer. Beatrice stood. Edmund, if there is undisclosed exposure across house assets, the board needs to know before tonight's sale. Edmund turned to her with quiet menace. The board has always known that heritage carries complexities. Ethan said, complexity is what powerful people call fraud before discovery. Oliver snapped, you don't get to come back after 8 years and accuse everyone. Ethan looked at him. I am not accusing everyone. I am asking who changed the mounting. I told you. No, Ethan said. You told us you authorized a correction. You did not tell us who told you the necklace needed to be camera-ready despite a clasp concern. You did not tell us why Voss was available last night. You did not tell us why Edmund's legacy credential opened the conservation door after final report. And you have not asked once why a mark from a supposedly destroyed Marceline component is inside Lot 1. That means you are either frightened, compromised, or less curious than a specialist should be. Oliver's face reddened. You arrogant. Mr. Banks, Clara said sharply. Sit down. Oliver did not sit. He looked at Clara, then Edmund, then Beatrice, and Ethan watched the calculation move across his face. Oliver had wanted advancement, not prison. Ambition could carry a man into dirty rooms, but fear often told him where the exits were. I was told, Oliver said through clenched teeth, that the clasp issue was known, minor, and historically documented in a restricted file. Edmund said Henry Wexford had approved the handling protocol before his death. He said Clara did not need to be burdened before the sale. Clara stared at him. You believed that? Oliver's mouth twisted. I believed the board would prefer a record sale to a philosophical debate about antique screws. Ethan said, hinges. Oliver looked confused. What? Not screws. Hinges. Details matter when lies are small. Beatrice sat slowly. Edmund's voice went ice. Cold. Mr. Banks is attempting to shift responsibility. Oliver turned on him. You gave me Voss. I gave you the name of a consultant. You said this house had survived greater defects than a hinge. Many houses have. Ethan watched them turn toward each other and did not interrupt. Rooms confessed fastest when liars realized the other liar might speak first. Clara looked at him once, and he shook his head slightly. Wait, Edmund said. Oliver, I advise you to stop speaking without counsel. Of course you do, Oliver laughed bitterly. That is what you said last night, too. Clara's voice cut in. Last night where? Oliver hesitated. Edmund said, do not. Ethan leaned forward. Mr. Dot here, Banks, your next sentence decides whether you are the man who touched the necklace or the man left holding Edmund Vale's tool marks. Oliver swallowed. Clara looked at Ethan. Beatrice looked at Oliver. The boardroom seemed to narrow until only one path remained. Voss came through the basement after closing. Oliver said, I met him at conservation. Edmund was there. Edmund said, false. Oliver continued faster now. He brought a small packet from Legacy Storage. Said it was original, compatible material tied to historical repairs. Voss adjusted the clasp tongue and right hinge. I asked about documenting it. Edmund said documentation existed in the Legacy file and would be added after sale to avoid bitter confusion. Priya's face on the screen went still with anger. You let a suspended consultant alter Lot 1 using a packet from Legacy Storage? Oliver looked at her. I thought it was authorized. Ethan asked, what was in the packet? A clasp element. Small. Already polished. With the transfer mark? I didn't see a mark. Did Voss? Oliver looked away. He said something like, funny where old parts turn up. I thought he was joking. Edmund's face had gone expressionless. That was worse than anger. It meant the polite man had left, and the machine underneath was now active. Clara walked to the head of the table and placed both hands on the polished wood. Edmund, you will surrender all Legacy Storage access, Marceline files, Aurelian restricted notes, and communications with Gerald Voss. Edmund smiled slightly. No. Beatrice stiffened. Clara's voice lowered. No? No. You are CEO, Clara, not owner of every confidence this house holds. Legacy matters belong to the trust structure your father created. You do not have unilateral authority to expose protected client history because a disgraced negotiator brought hysteria into your sale. Ethan said, there it is. Clara did not look away from Edmund. What? Ethan answered softly. The wall behind the door, trust structure, protected client history, related legacy assets. He is not protecting the necklace. He is protecting the architecture. Edmund's smile did not fade. You always did enjoy dramatic architecture, and you always did hide behind dead men. Edmund's eyes sharpened. Your wife understood caution better than you. The room changed, not because everyone knew Grace's name, but because Ethan did. For 8 years, he had carried her memory like a protected flame. Edmund had just reached toward it. Clara noticed the shift in him and stepped half a pace closer, though she did not know why. Ethan's voice became very quiet. Do not use my wife to decorate your warning. Edmund's expression softened into something almost kind, which was the ugliest thing in the room. Grace signed the settlement acknowledgement too, did she not? She understood what was at stake. She understood that raising a child requires compromise. Ethan's hand moved to his briefcase. Not violently, precisely. He opened it, removed the sealed envelope with Grace's handwriting, and placed it on the boardroom table. Ethan Cole. Clara looked at it. Edmund looked at it. For the first time all afternoon, Edmund's face lost its smoothness, only for a fraction of a second, but Ethan saw it. What is that? Edmund asked. Ethan looked at him. A room I wasn't ready to enter. Clara whispered. From your wife? Yes. Have you opened it? No. Edmund recovered. Personal correspondence is not relevant. Ethan almost smiled. Then why did you react? Beatrice looked at Edmund sharply. Priya leaned closer to her camera. Oliver stared at the envelope as if it might explode. Ethan touched the edge of it but did not break the seal. Not yet. He had spent years afraid that Grace's last truth would demand more courage than he had left. But someone had called Lily's school. Someone had put Marceline inside Aurelian. Someone had decided the name Ethan Cole could be buried twice. He picked up the envelope. Miss Wexford, you want to save your sale? Clara's answer came slowly. Yes. Then stop trying to save the evening first. Save the record. The evening may follow. He turned to Beatrice. You want to protect the board? She did not answer, but her silence was attentive. Freeze Lot 1. Continue the sale without it if you must. Announce enhanced review. Preserve every file. Bring in independent outside counsel not connected to Edmund, Wexford Legacy, Voss, or Marceline. Notify insurers before buyers notify them for you. Oliver said. The price will collapse. Ethan looked at him. Good. Let it collapse before bidding, not after wire transfer. Clara closed her eyes briefly. He knew that pain. The pain of choosing the disaster you could still control. Beatrice looked at Edmund. Can the sale proceed without Lot 1? Edmund said. It would signal weakness. Ethan said, No, it signals adulthood. Beatrice surprised him by almost smiling. Clara turned to her assistant. Prepare a statement. Wexford and Vale has initiated enhanced conservation review of Lot 1 and will postpone offering the Aurelian necklace pending further documentation. All other lots proceed as scheduled. Oliver looked sick. Edmund's voice sharpened. Clara, if you do this, certain guarantees trigger penalties. Board confidence will be affected. Clara looked at him. Then let the board decide whether it prefers penalties to fraud. You do not know there is fraud. No, but I know there is enough truth to stop pretending there is none. Beatrice nodded once. The other board members exchanged glances, and then, one by one, nodded. Edmund stood alone at the window now, no longer looking like a man who owned the city, but like a man calculating which bridge to burn before others crossed it. Ethan's phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He did not want to look. He looked anyway. The message contained a photograph. Lily sitting safely in Principal Harris's office, eating a granola bar, her face turned away, taken through the office window from outside. Beneath it, you can save the necklace or your name. Not both. The room seemed to fall away. Clara saw his face and reached for the phone. He did not hand it to her. He turned the screen only enough for her to see. Her eyes widened with horror. Oh my God. Edmund said nothing. Ethan looked at him. Did you send this? Edmund's voice was smooth again. No. Do you know who did? No. Will your next answer be more believable if I ask it with Lily's principal, police, and every security camera within a block of her school preserved? Edmund's jaw tightened. That was not an answer. That was better. Clara turned to her assistant. Call our security chief. No, not to the school. Preserve and coordinate through Mr. Cole's approved contact only. Also call outside counsel now. Independent. Not Legacy. Not Edmund. Ethan looked back at the photograph. Lily was safe. The angle was outside. Whoever took it had not entered. Fear wanted him to run. Anger wanted him to break every rule in the room. Negotiation required a third choice. He called Mrs. Donnelly. She answered immediately. We see him, she said before he spoke. A man outside near the staff parking lot. Principal Harris called police. Lily is away from windows. She is safe. Ethan closed his eyes. Good. Do not come here if that is what they want, Mrs. Donnelly said. Ethan, listen to me. Do not give them the easy shape. Grace had chosen their village well. Thank you. And when this is done, I am making soup and yelling at you. Fair. He ended the call and placed the phone on the table. Then he opened Grace's envelope. No one breathed. Inside was a single folded letter, a small photograph, and a condition sketch Ethan recognized with such force that his knees nearly weakened. The sketch showed the Marceline sapphire clasp assembly, including the transfer mark now visible in the Aurelian. Grace's handwriting filled the margin. Ethan, if they ever use Lily to make you choose, do not choose their choices. The clasp was never destroyed. Henry moved it into the Aurelian trust file. Edmund knows. Clara may not. Ask what Lot 1 is really guaranteeing. He stared at the words until they blurred. Grace had known. Grace, dying, paying bills, braiding Lily's hair from a chair when she no longer had strength to stand, had known the old room was not closed. Clara read over his shoulder, one hand pressed to her mouth. Beatrice whispered, What does that mean? What Lot 1 is really guaranteeing? Edmund moved toward the door. Security blocked him, not dramatically, just enough. Ethan folded the letter carefully, because Grace's words deserved more respect than the hands that had forced them into hiding. He looked at Clara. It means the Aurelian necklace is not only being sold, it is collateral. Clara's face drained. For what? Ethan looked at Edmund Vale, whose silence finally looked like fear. "That," Ethan said, "is the next room." And below them, in Gallery 1, the live stream cameras began turning toward an empty pedestal, where the most important necklace in the world was no longer waiting to be sold, but waiting to testify. The word collateral changed the boardroom faster than any accusation could have, because fraud could still be denied, negligence could still be softened, condition issues could still be buried beneath procedure, but collateral meant the Aurelian necklace was no longer only a jewel, no longer only Lot 1, no longer only Clara Wexford's chance to prove she could lead the house without her father's shadow. It meant the necklace might be holding up something else, something larger, hidden, and already cracking. Beatrice Lang stood slowly from the board chair's seat, pearl earrings trembling once as if even they understood the price of the silence in the room. "Mr. Cole," she said, her voice stripped of its earlier contempt, "explain that sentence." Edmund Vale answered before Ethan could. "He cannot. He is building drama from fragments, because that is what he was always paid to do." Ethan did not look at Edmund. He looked at Clara. "Ask what financial instrument is attached to Lot 1. Clara frowned. "The Aurelian has a pre-sale guarantee. That is normal for a major jewel." "Who guaranteed it?" Beatrice answered this time, too quickly. "A consortium." Ethan turned to her. "Name it." Beatrice's mouth tightened. "Guarantee structures are confidential." So was Marceline. "Confidentiality is not innocence. Name the room." Clara's eyes moved from Ethan to Beatrice. "Who guaranteed Lot 1? Beatrice looked toward Edmund, and that small glance told Ethan almost everything. Clara saw it too, and the color drained from her face in a way no lighting could hide. Edmund walked calmly back to the table, placed both hands on the chair in front of him, and said, "A private guarantee vehicle connected to legacy clients, as is common in the trade. Its purpose is to protect the house from downside risk." Ethan said, "No, its purpose is to make sure the sale happens." Edmund's smile was faint. "Those are often the same thing. Not when the object is compromised." Clara's assistant whispered, "Miss Wexford, the press statement is ready, but the live stream team says viewers are asking why the central pedestal is empty." Clara did not take her eyes off Edmund. "Hold the statement." Oliver Banks shifted near the wall. "If we hold any longer, the rumor market will write the statement for us." Priya's voice came from the conference screen, controlled but tight. "The rumor market is not my concern. The necklace is under seal because it contains an undocumented component and recent handling marks. If anyone moves it for presentation, I will record my objection in writing." Ethan looked toward the screen. Priya was afraid, but she had chosen the kind of fear that made records instead of excuses. He respected that more than courage. Courage was often noisy. Records survived after noisy people left. Clara turned to Beatrice. "I want the guarantee file." Beatrice inhaled. "Clara, that file is restricted to board chair, CEO, CFO, and legacy counsel." "I am CEO." "Yes, but given the potential conflict involving your father's legacy, we should proceed through counsel." "Independent counsel?" Ethan asked. Beatrice did not answer. Edmund did. "Certainly not him." Ethan smiled without warmth. "I'm not counsel. I'm the man who knows where the hinge is wrong." Edmund's eyes cooled. "You are the man who signed away the right to involve yourself in Wexford legacy assets." Ethan lifted Grace's letter from the table. "And this is the letter my wife wrote before she died, telling me the Marceline clasp was moved into the Aurelian trust file and asking what Lot 1 was really guaranteeing. If you want to argue legal restrictions, call the police, call a judge, call every insurer with a financial stake in this sale, but do it in writing." Edmund's expression sharpened, and for the first time, Ethan saw anger underneath the courtesy. "You are making a mistake." "No," Ethan said. "I made the mistake 8 years ago when I believed your silence had edges. It didn't. It spread." Clara stepped between them, not physically blocking, but placing herself at the center of the room she had spent her life inheriting without fully owning. "My father's legacy counsel will no longer direct this discussion. Beatrice, I want the guarantee file. Now." Beatrice looked at the other board members, who had gone very still. One of them, a heavy man with silver-framed glasses named Martin Sloan, cleared his throat. "Clara, The issue is not simply board preference. The guarantee vehicle includes cross-default language. Ethan's attention snapped to him. There. Clara turned. Cross-default with what? Martin went pale, realizing too late that he had opened the correct door. Edmund said, Martin. Beatrice closed her eyes. Ethan stepped closer to the table. Cross-default means if Lot 1 is withdrawn, another obligation triggers. Not just a disappointed bidder. Not just a penalty. What obligation? Martin looked at Edmund, then at Clara, then finally at the table. A secured credit facility. Clara's voice dropped. For Wexford and Vale? For a legacy acquisition fund associated with the Wexford Trust. My father's trust? Yes. Clara looked as if the building had shifted beneath her. How much? No one answered. Ethan did not push immediately. The room was already bleeding. Let it show where. Beatrice whispered. 380 million. Clara's face went utterly still. That is impossible. Edmund spoke softly. It is managed. By whom? The trust structure. By whom, Edmund? His smile returned, smaller now. Among others, my office. Ethan looked toward the empty pedestal on the live feed monitor. So the Aurelian is guaranteeing a loan larger than the sale estimate. If the necklace sells strong, the trust survives. If the necklace is withdrawn, the loan triggers. If the compromised component is exposed, the guarantee collapses. If the Marceline link is proven, the legacy fund becomes evidence. Beatrice sat down as if her knees had become older. Oliver whispered, I didn't know that. Priya, from the screen, said nothing, but her eyes had gone hard. Clara looked at Edmund with a daughter's devastation and a CEO's fury colliding in her throat. You used my sale to secure my father's debt. Edmund's voice turned almost gentle. Your father built this house through leverage. You have enjoyed the marble without asking how it was quarried. Ethan saw the sentence hit her. It was cruel because it contained enough truth to wound. Clara had inherited power. That did not mean she had built the lie. It did mean she had lived inside it. The difference mattered, but not enough to excuse ignorance now. Ethan said, This is the moment he wants you ashamed enough to become silent. Clara turned to him, eyes bright. Do not manage me. Then do not let him. The boardroom held its breath. Clara looked back at Edmund. Produce the file. Edmund straightened. No. I am invoking legacy, privilege, and trust confidentiality. Until independent authority compels production, I will not allow a panicked CEO, a compromised specialist, and a disgraced negotiator to destroy decades of protected structure. Ethan nodded. Good. Edmund stared. Good. Now everyone heard the wall. Clara looked toward her assistant. Call Kessler and Brandt. Ask for Elise Hart, Emergency Independent Counsel. Tell her Wexford and Vale may have undisclosed secured obligations tied to a withdrawn auction lot, possible compromised condition reporting, and potential intimidation of a consultant's minor child. Tell her I need preservation guidance in 10 minutes. Edmund's expression darkened. You will regret that call. Maybe, Clara said, but I will regret not making it more. Ethan's phone buzzed again, and every eye in the room turned to him. He looked down. Mrs. Donnelly, police are here. Principal moved Lily to interior office. She is safe and asking whether diamonds are still being dramatic. Ethan let himself breathe once. My daughter is safe, he said, mostly to himself. Clara nodded, but her face did not ease. I am assigning Wexford security to preserve external camera footage around the school only through police contact and your permission. Nothing direct. Ethan looked at her. Good. Beatrice whispered, My God, Clara, what has this become? Ethan answered without meaning to, a room with lights on. The assistant hurried out. Edmund moved toward the door again, but this time the security chief entered before he reached it. She was a tall woman with close-cropped hair and the calm of someone who preferred evidence to drama. Miss Wexford, I'm Dana Rhodes, acting security chief. Your assistant said preservation hold? Clara pointed toward Edmund, without looking away from him. No one leaves with documents, devices connected to Lot 1, legacy access, Marceline, Voss, the guarantee vehicle, or any communications involving Mr. Cole or his daughter. Preserve, do not seize, unless counsel approves. Also, all access to Gallery 1 remains sealed. Dana nodded. Understood. Edmund smiled thinly. You are detaining counsel now? Dana replied. No, sir, I am documenting exits. Ethan almost liked her immediately. Edmund did not. Oliver's phone vibrated. He looked at it and went pale. Ethan saw the screen reflection on the polished table. Voss. Answer it, Ethan said. Oliver's head snapped up. What? Answer it on speaker, Edmund said. Do not. Clara said. Answer it. Oliver looked like a trapped man being ordered by 3 different exits to choose a wall. He put the call on speaker with shaking fingers. A rough, older voice came through. Tell me you're not still in the building. Oliver swallowed. Gerald. Voss swore. You idiot. Where's Vale? Edmund's face became stone. Ethan leaned forward. Here. Silence. Then Voss said, Who is that? Ethan smiled faintly. The man who remembers Bella Rose. Another silence. Longer. Sharper. Cole? Hello? Gerald. You should have stayed dead. Clara's eyes widened. Ethan's expression did not change. Professionally, I tried. Voss breathed hard through the phone. Oliver, listen to me. That part was clean when I gave it back. Whatever they found, I didn't put it there. Ethan looked at Priya on the screen, then at Clara. Which part? Voss said nothing. Ethan continued. You called Oliver, not the house, not security, not Edmund. That means you think Oliver is the weak door. You are probably right. But if you want the smaller room, you should speak before Edmund makes you the only craftsman near the evidence. Voss laughed harshly. Still doing that, huh? Offering men smaller rooms. Only when they're already locked in bigger ones. Edmund said, Mr. Voss, hang up. Voss laughed again, but there was fear inside it. Of course you'd say that. Ethan's voice stayed calm. What part did you install? Clasp tongue insert and rear catch stabilizer. Priya looked furious. You touched 2 points? Voss said. Who is that? Priya answered coldly. The conservator whose report you compromised. I was told the report would be amended. Ethan asked. By Edmund? By the house? Name? Voss hesitated. Vale brought the packet. Banks authorized access. I did the adjustment. That's all. Where did the packet come from? Legacy storage. Did you know it contained Marceline material? Voss said nothing. Clara stepped closer to the phone. Mr. Voss, this is Clara Wexford. Did my father know the Marceline clasp assembly was preserved? Voss exhaled. Lady, your father knew where every ghost slept. The sentence struck Clara like a slap, but she stayed standing. Ethan said, Did Edmund tell you I was in the building today? Voss answered too fast. No. Then why call Oliver now? Silence. Ethan did not fill it. The best pressure was often absence. Voss finally muttered, Because I got a message. From? Unknown. What did it say? Voss cursed under his breath. It said, if Cole sees the mark, the guarantee dies, and so do we. Beatrice gasped. Dana Rhodes immediately signaled to a colleague outside. Ethan's eyes did not move from Edmund. Forward the message to Wexford Security and Independent Counsel. Voss barked a laugh. And trust Wexford? No, trust self-preservation. Voss went quiet. I have references. Most of them hate you. That is how I know they remember. Voss ended the call after agreeing to forward the message through Oliver, which Dana documented twice, and Oliver looked too frightened to fake. Edmund's counsel mask was gone now, replaced by a colder instrument. You are all listening to an unverified phone call with a suspended bench worker under obvious duress. Ethan nodded. Yes, and preserving it. That is how verification starts. Clara's assistant returned, breathless. Elise Hart is on the line. She says do not discuss privileged material further until she joins by secure video, but she also says immediately suspend Lot 1, issue a neutral condition statement, notify insurers of preservation, review, and preserve all communications. Her exact words were, do not sell the shiny thing while the house is on fire. Priya, still on screen, whispered, I like her. Clara almost smiled for half a second, then straightened. Issue the statement. Oliver looked as if he might be sick. Beatrice put one hand over her eyes. Edmund took a step back from the table. Ethan watched the monitors as the auction house below began to react. The live stream shifted away from the empty pedestal to a wide shot of the gallery ceiling. Staff moved quickly along the aisles. The assistant's statement reached phones before voices. Wexford and Vale has initiated an enhanced conservation and documentation review of the Aurelian Diamond Necklace and will postpone its offering pending completion of that review. The Winter Magnificence sale will proceed with remaining lots as scheduled. No drama, no confession, no lie. In the main gallery, the reaction unfolded like weather. Advisors bent over phones. Collectors whispered. The Delacroix trustee stood and demanded someone. Al-Rashid's representative remained seated, expression unreadable, which meant he was either furious or impressed. Cameras searched for faces. The pedestal stayed empty. Clara stared at the monitor, watching millions of dollars in momentum drain from the evening. Ethan knew what it cost her. He also knew she had chosen the only disaster that still left tomorrow available. Then the boardroom phone rang. Clara's assistant checked the caller ID and looked up. The guarantor representative, Beatrice whispered, "Already?" Ethan said, "They were waiting for the statement." Clara squared her shoulders. "Put them through." A man's voice filled the room, smooth, international, expensive. "Miss Wexford, this is Julian Armand for Solstice Guarantee Partners. We received your announcement. We assume this is a temporary presentational delay." Clara looked at Ethan. He shook his head slightly. "Do not comfort," Clara said. "It is an enhanced conservation and documentation review. That is regrettable. Under the guarantee agreement, withdrawal or material adverse condition disclosure may trigger immediate review rights." Beatrice closed her eyes. Edmund's expression had become almost calm again, which Ethan disliked. Julian continued, "We will send a representative to inspect the piece and relevant documentation." Clara said, "The piece is under internal seal pending independent counsel and insurer coordination. Miss Wexford, Solstice has contractual rights." Ethan leaned toward Clara and whispered, "Ask what they are secured against." Clara said, "Before any inspection, I want confirmation of the full secured obligation connected to Lot 1. Julian paused. "That is not a sale, floor matter. It is now. I suggest you speak with Legacy Counsel." Ethan almost smiled. Clara did not. "Legacy Counsel is present and under preservation hold." This time Julian's silence lasted longer. "That is an aggressive posture." Clara's voice became very quiet. "Someone contacted a consultant's 8-year-old daughter's school after he identified an undocumented component inside the Aurelian necklace. If you would like to discuss aggressive posture, arrive with counsel and clean hands." Beatrice stared at her. Edmund said, "Clara." She cut him off with a raised hand. Julian's voice cooled. "Solstice denies any knowledge of such conduct." Ethan whispered, "Not asked." Clara said, "I did not ask whether you knew." Julian said nothing. Ethan saw Clara understand the tool. "Do not accept the answer to the question you did not ask." She continued, "Preserve all communications relating to Wexford and Vale, the Wexford Trust, Henry Wexford, Edmund Vale, Gerald Voss, the Marceline Sapphire, the Aurelian Necklace, and Ethan Cole." Julian laughed softly. "Miss Wexford, you are asking a guarantor to preserve material based on a theatrical story from a discredited man." Clara looked at Ethan. There it was again, discredited man. The old phrase, walking into a new room. She turned back to the phone. "I am asking because I am no longer willing to confuse discredited with inconvenient." Ethan looked away. Not because he was moved, because he was, and he did not want Edmund to see. Julian said, "We will respond through counsel." The line ended. The boardroom remained silent until Martin Sloan whispered, "Solstice can call the loan." Beatrice nodded. "If they do, the trust collapses." Clara turned on Edmund. "Was my company exposed to that collapse?" Edmund folded his hands. "The trust and the company have interlocking reputational obligations." "Financial obligations?" "Indirectly." "That word is a hallway," Ethan said. "Walk it." Edmund gave him a look of pure hatred now. Good. Hatred was cleaner than courtesy. Edmund said, certain guarantees, letters of comfort, and legacy client commitments could create liquidity stress. Clara laughed once, disbelieving. Liquidity stress? You mean bankruptcy risk? I mean your father built a house that required confidence. You just damaged it publicly. Clara's face went white, then cold. No, you built a trap that required silence. Edmund stepped closer to her, voice lowering. Your father understood that beauty is never pure. He understood that provenance is negotiation, that history is managed, that collectors buy continuity, not truth. He understood that institutions survive because someone decides which facts deserve daylight. Ethan looked at Clara, waiting. This was Edmund's strongest move. Not denial, not threat, but inheritance. He was offering her the old crown with the blood polished off. Clara stared at him for a long time. My father also understood, she said slowly, that if you call something priceless often enough, people stop asking who paid for it. Edmund's eyes narrowed. That sounds like coal. No, Clara said. That sounds like me after finally listening. Before Edmund could answer, Dana Rhodes stepped forward. Miss Wexford, external counsel has arrived downstairs. Also, police confirmed the individual near the school left before contact. They have video. They are coordinating with Mr. Cole's approved contact. Lily remains safe. Ethan nodded once because if he tried to speak, the father would overtake the negotiator. Clara looked at him. Go to her. The room turned. Ethan's first instinct was yes, so violent it almost moved his feet. Lily was safe but had been watched. Every part of him wanted the train, the school office, her arms, proof no one had turned her into leverage. Edmund saw it. Of course he did. Yes, Mr. Cole, Edmund said softly. Go be a father. This is no longer your room. Ethan closed his eyes. One breath to name the room. Boardroom, sealed necklace, threatened child, trapped sale, old lie exposed. One breath to name the fear. If I stay, I fail, Lily. If I leave, they bury the truth again and come for her later. One breath to choose the next sentence. He opened his eyes and looked at Clara. I will call her. I will hear her voice. I will send Mrs. Donnelly instructions. I will not leave the room Edmund wants empty. Edmund's lips thinned. Clara's expression changed, not with pity, but respect. Ethan called Mrs. Donnelly again. Lily came on after 2 rings. Dad? Hi, Firefly. The principal gave me colored pencils. Good. A police officer said I'm very calm. You are. Are you scared? He looked at Edmund. Yes. Is fear in the big chair? Not today. Are the diamonds still mean? Some people around them are. Then don't trade your name. He closed his eyes. I won't. Mrs. Donnelly says soup later. Tell her I accept the yelling too. Lily giggled, small and real, and that sound repaired 1 inch of the world. When he ended the call, Clara was looking at him with eyes that had changed again. She had heard the rule. Come home with your name still yours. It was not dramatic now. It was a contract. Elise Hart, independent counsel, joined by secure video at 3:12 p.m., and did what good lawyers did best. She removed adjectives. She ordered preservation holds, created a clean investigation structure, separated privilege channels, suspended Edmund's operational role, barred Oliver from handling any object, notified insurers without admitting liability, and insisted that all communications with Solstice Guarantee partners go through counsel. Edmund objected on trust authority grounds. Elise asked whether he represented the trust, the company, the guarantee vehicle, or himself. Edmund answered with a sentence so complex, Ethan nearly admired it. Elise responded, that is 4 conflicts in a trench coat. Priya actually laughed from the conservation screen. By 4:00 p.m., the Winter Magnificence sale began without the Aurelian. Clara took the rostrum herself. Ethan watched from a small side monitor in the boardroom, refusing the chair everyone suddenly wanted to offer him. She looked composed under the lights, white suit immaculate, hair pinned perfectly, face pale but steady. Ladies and gentlemen, she said to the room in the live stream, Lot 1 will not be offered this evening. Wexford and Vale has initiated enhanced conservation and documentation review. We will not present an object before its condition and record are fully aligned. The sale will proceed with Lot 2. A murmur moved through the gallery. Some faces hardened, some looked impressed, some looked greedy for scandal. Clara did not flinch. Ethan felt something shift inside him, unwilling but real. She had not told the whole truth. She could not yet. But she had stopped the central lie from becoming a sale. That mattered. The auction continued. Lot 2 sold below estimate. Lot 3 passed. Lot 4 sparked a bidding war that seemed almost angry, as if buyers wanted to prove the room still had money in it. Meanwhile, upstairs, the investigation began eating through locked drawers. Access logs showed Edmund's legacy credential had opened not only conservation the previous night, but also a restricted digital folder labeled AUR Solstice Collateral. The folder was empty by the time Elise's team accessed it, but deletion logs showed a transfer to an external archive at 12:11 p.m., 7 minutes after Ethan wrote the unsigned condition note. Destination: Vale Legacy. Secure. Edmund denied knowledge. Dana Rhodes preserved the denial. Priya's material scan returned preliminary confirmation that the clasp tongue insert contained alloy consistent with the Marceline repair sketch from Grace's envelope. Oliver's messages showed he had been promised advancement after the Aurelian sale by someone using Edmund's office line. Gerald Voss forwarded the anonymous threat to Oliver, and a second older message, instructing him to reconcile Marceline Assembly into Aurelian under H.W. Continuity Authority. H.W. Henry Wexford, or someone wanting Henry's initials to carry blame beyond the grave. At 5:18, Elise Hart entered the boardroom in person, silver hair, navy suit, no jewelry except a plain wedding band, and carrying the energy of a woman who considered panic a scheduling failure. She reviewed the first hour of findings, then looked at Ethan. "Mr. Cole, I need to ask you directly. Are you seeking compensation from Wexford and Vale?" Ethan blinked. "No." "Reinstatement?" "No." "Public vindication?" He hesitated. That was the dangerous one. "I want the truth documented." "That is not the same as public vindication." "I know." Elise studied him. "Do you?" Grace would have liked her. Ethan said, "I have a daughter. I want her safe first. My name second. Everything else behind that." Elise nodded. "Good. Then we can work." Clara said, "What about Solstice?" Elise placed a folder on the table. Solstice Guarantee Partners is demanding inspection rights and threatening preliminary default notices, but their guarantee file references something called the Aurelian Continuity Pool. I cannot yet determine whether that is a financing vehicle, collateral trust, or laundering mechanism for legacy exposure. Beatrice whispered. "Laundering?" Edmund said sharply. "That is reckless language." Elise turned to him. "Then help me make it less reckless." He said nothing. Ethan looked at Grace's letter again. "Ask what Lot 1 is really guaranteeing." He lifted his head. "It's not only debt." Everyone turned to him. "Explain," Clara said. Ethan looked at the Aurelian images on the screen. Diamonds. Hinge. Hidden mark. If the Marceline clasp was supposed to be destroyed and instead moved into the Aurelian, then selling the Aurelian to a private buyer would move evidence out of the house under a clean transaction. If the buyer was connected to Solstice or the guarantee vehicle, the object disappears into a protected collection. The sale pays the debt and removes the proof. Priya whispered. 2 birds. Ethan nodded. 1 diamond. Clara sat slowly. So the record price was not the goal. The transfer was. Edmund's voice cut in. Speculation. Ethan looked at him. Then answer one question. I am done with your questions. No, Ethan said softly. You are done with answers that work. Elise leaned back, watching. Ethan continued. Who was the intended buyer? Beatrice said. It was an auction. There is no intended buyer. Ethan shook his head. In theory. But a guaranteed lot, with a compromised component, a debt vehicle, and a private representative arriving early, suggests someone expected to control the outcome. Who was supposed to win the Aurelian? Clara looked toward the live gallery monitor. Al-Rashid's representative? Ethan shook his head. Too visible. Beatrice said. The Delacroix Museum? Too public. Priya said. A phone bidder? Ethan nodded slowly. Proxy. Clara turned to her assistant. Pull registered bidders for Lot 1. Elise raised a hand. Through counsel. The assistant looked at Elise, got a nod, and worked. Edmund's face had gone too still again. Ethan saw it. You know the bidder. Edmund said nothing. The assistant's tablet pinged. She read, frowned, and looked at Clara. There were 3 approved phone bidders for Lot 1, 2 known private clients, 1 newly registered entity, North Star Cultural Holdings. Clara shook her head. I don't know them. Elise's expression sharpened. I do. Shell entity, used in disputed private acquisitions. Ethan's phone buzzed again. Unknown number. This time the message contained no photo, no threat, only 5 words. North Star is Edmund's exit. Ethan stared at it. Someone inside the trap was lighting matches along the hallway. He showed Elise first. She read it, then looked at Dana. Trace what you can. Preserve. Clara looked at Ethan. Who is sending these? Someone who wants Edmund stopped. Edmund smiled coldly. Or someone using you to destroy us. Ethan met his eyes. Both can be true. The auction downstairs continued, but in the boardroom, the real sale was already over. The Aurelian was under seal. The trust was exposed. The guarantee was trembling. Edmund's exit had a name, and Ethan Cole, who had entered Wexford and Vale as temporary floor support, now stood in the center of the room that had stolen 8 years from him. Then Clara's assistant received one more notification and turned pale. Miss Wexford, she said, North Star Cultural Holdings has filed an emergency demand to compel delivery of Lot 1 under the guarantee side agreement. Clara looked at Elise. Elise looked at Ethan. Edmund looked out the window and smiled. Ethan understood then. The auction was no longer the battlefield. The contract was. And somewhere inside that contract, hidden beneath guarantees, collateral, and legacy language, was the signature that had destroyed him.